Greetings and welcome to another session of Middle-Aged Cartooning. This is the Middle-Aged Cartooning Geek coming to you again with another adventure of our superheroine here, the Mighty Energy Girl. My name is Ken Bailey. I am a semi-professional, I guess you could say, longtime hobby cartoonist, and I have enjoyed especially creating an ongoing comic book series since the mid-1960s. The gal you're seeing below in living black and white is the Mighty Energy Girl, my flagship character, although I do other things. Going back to 2004. E-Girl here, seen rushing somewhere, is approaching her 10th birthday in real life. It was in August of 2004 that the very first sketches of Energy Girl were drawn, character development was begun, and then about a year later, after a reboot, by the way, this is not the first comic book Energy Girl appeared in, but this is the first, dare I say, post-scary time. I can't say post-C word because somebody else has that already copyrighted. But this is the first post-reboot issue of the Mighty Energy Girl. This is volume 2, number 1, and I am currently working on number 31, so 30 issues have elapsed. Now, anybody that knows me knows I'm pretty big on trains, so obviously the very first Energy Girl story deals with a railroad crisis. But for you budding cartoonists out there, always remember to include a bio page. This is where you simply tell new readers who are just coming on at the last minute, never go beyond a page worth, but tell basically who your character is and what their backstory is, enough that new readers can join the story and have an idea what's going on with the rest of us. Okay, we're just going to pop through here. Energy Girl on vacation in Colorado. She's normally a Midwestern resident. Is ripped out of a vacation to rescue a hijacked train before it is driven into Denver and detonated. This was obviously done in the early 2000s. I know this is a common plot, but it makes a great story. And it touches on another common superhero genre, and that is if you are a superhero, don't ever try to take a personal vacation. You can be absolutely sure that no matter where you go and what you do, and no matter how well you disguise yourself, somebody is going to need the super you, and you're going to have to go to their rescue and trash your vacation in the process. And so in this story, it's no different. Energy Girl as Ellen Ann Peabody, while her husband was sleeping in, she knows he's a train fan, so she had decided to take a camera and, as a special surprise for her sweetie, drive up the Front Range and get some pictures of trains in the mountains. Well, you know the rest of the story. The very first train she tried to photograph got hijacked right in front of her, and the rest is history. So that was Energy Girl number 1. We'll just kind of paw through here to give you kind of a taste of things. Setting in Colorado, even though she doesn't live there, gives us a great opportunity to have all kinds of mountains and tunnels and all kinds of other scenes. Now, cartoonists love to, as do writers and other creative people, they love to hide what they call Easter eggs in their work, which is references that their friends and relatives and people that know them will see that nobody else might see. Maybe it's like going on an Easter egg hunt. I'm not sure where the name came from. Here we see Energy Girl KOing one of the assassins on top of the moving train. However, notice the boxcar, Great Lakes Midwestern. You won't find this in the real world. It's a fictional railroad, but there was a time when I was younger I had a model railroad called the Great Lakes Midwestern. Later, one of my friends took it over, and so that obviously is an Easter egg. This one says, ship blank on the blank. You can't see the rest of it because, yes, that is a copyrighted slogan for a real railroad. We never mean any harm, but we still have to be careful because our superheroes may not always be faster than a speeding lawyer, if you know what I mean. Okay, like I said, mountains, streams, tunnels. Mountains are great, so if your character doesn't live there, just find a reason to get them there. Vacation's always a good one. Now, notice this shot. Energy Girl was on the roof of the train, and the hijackers found out about it and opened fire right through the roof, and she comes crashing in through the front window. Great action shot, right? Well, actually, this came about because I wanted to know if I could draw her in this position. Many of our cartoonists see it first in our mind and then say, can we somehow get that on paper? Remember that. We'll come back to that in just a minute. More stuff going on inside the cab. Good old pow, bam, smash. Ouch. And she ends up by throwing the hijacking engineer right through the cab window and into water. Have you ever noticed, for those of us that don't like people that die in our comic books, that anytime anybody needs to be thrown from a moving vehicle, there's always convenient shallow water right there, just at the nick of time? Ah, the great world of fiction. Okay, there's a great shot. What do you do now? You have to stop a moving train. I found out it's always good to research your subjects. After I finished this book, one of my friends who is a real-life locomotive engineer came to me and said, you should tell Energy Girl that if she wanted to stop the train, right by her left hand, which is on our right, on the side of the locomotive there, where this one is smooth, on a real locomotive there is a slot cut in there which has an emergency brake on the outside of the locomotive that she could have done to stop at least the engines. Well, I didn't know that, and neither did she. So basically, she comes up with a way to separate the engines from the cars. You've seen that in movies about 1 billion times, I imagine. Leave the cars behind, and then stop the engines by jumping off, lifting them up, and tossing them into the ditch, which causes a wreck of the 3 engines. Now, in the modern era, a typical diesel locomotive costs somewhere in the neighborhood of $1.5 million. So Energy Girl kept people safe by keeping these runaway engines from making it into Denver, but in the process managed to cause approximately $4.5 to $5 million worth of damage, let alone damage to the track. Well, sometimes that's the price of being a superhero. Fortunately, someone else picks up the bill, at least in the comic book world. But I wish I'd known that they had a brake on the outside. I could have told her, and we would have saved the government $5 million. Unfortunately, the story would not have been nearly as exciting to draw. Now, in every good action story, you need at least some tank cars full of something nasty that might blow up unless the hero outwits it. You need the hero to get to the place where they admit defeat. She looks into the valley and says, oh no, Denver is sunk. And then at last, inspiration, followed by perspiration, followed by coming to the rescue. I won't tell you how it happens. You need to read the book. And no, they are not for sale. This is not secret advertising, but just to say that coming up with a solution after painting yourself into a corner is another part of the great fun of cartooning. The writing of the story is just as much fun as drawing it out. Now, this is one where her husband, Stan, cartoonist man Peabody, kind of sat the whole thing out. She shows up with the train pictures. For those of you younger people, this was drawn before the era of digital cameras. You went down to the drugstore and you mailed the pictures away, and a photographer processed them and sent them back in an envelope kind of like that. This is one time where we old fogies don't want to say to you young people, I remember what it was when I was young. It was so much better than you've got it today. I'm a photographer, and believe you me, I love being able to go down to the local store, plug my electric camera in, and have my pictures back in seconds. But we remember the good old days here. She has to wait till they come back. Usually we have a couple of things at the end here. Here's a panel showing the various stages of how an Energy Girl panel is drawn. It starts with pencil, such as this gal down here. We then go to light inking, as you can see, heavy inking, such as there with a heavier pen. And lastly, color and shading to give a sense of depth. No comments from the peanut gallery. Okay. It's nice to have, as your last page, something a little lighter to relieve the reader of the tension of the story. You might have some sort of comedic panel there, or something like this. This is just a general collage of some of the characters out of my various comic series over the years, including yours truly. I believe it was the late great Alfred Hitchcock who was one of the very early ones to sneak himself into his movies somewhere just for a second. And we all know a certain slightly larger comic book guy who appears in every one of the movies concerning his characters. He's a wonderful guy. I mean, no harm done, but he's a lot bigger than I am, and you all know his name, so boy, I hope someday I live long enough for that to happen to me, but don't hold your breath. Anyway, and the back cover, even strong women sometimes iron their own clothes. Again, no, this is not meant to be a political statement, but just a little bit of comedy. This woman can lift a truck. She sometimes irons her own uniform. Notice it says sometimes. Other times she makes her husband do it. All depends. Okay. As you can see, having a good sense of humor, or even a mediocre sense of humor, but enjoying it, keeps one sane in this crazy business. Now, before we close here, I just want to show you a little bit of in-process stuff. I put this in all my movies, or try to. This picture was started when I had some time off earlier today, a little bit of time off, and once again, the general progression of getting an idea is I come up in my mind with a pose in a different way than I've tried before and want to say, okay, can I get that on paper? So here you see she's running, she's dashing, and one foot out in front, the other one strung out behind, and obviously that's her uniform top, but she's got blue jeans on below the waist. So once we get the figure down, we then have to come up with some sort of explanation. So I've got her saying something like, Great Hammond, Indiana, because she's a musician. No time to even change into my uniform completely. In my world, legally, if you exercise superpower, you have to have a uniform on if you're in public. Well, my regulation top is going to have to do. So she's just got time to get her shirt off, and she's civilian from the waist down, but superly clad from the waist up. So that's where we're going with this. And I could do a little sketching, but I guess it looks like it's been about 11 minutes. So instead, I'll respect you for your patience with bearing with me. I'll give you the signature ending of my rather ugly mug, but I want to say in all seriousness, once again, cartooning is fun. Cartooning is a great hobby, and you don't have to be me. You don't have to be anybody else than yourself. But if you can take a pencil and tell a story on paper, I encourage you to now sit down, grab your pencil, and get to it. You may be the next middle-aged cartoonist someday. Of course, you got to start sooner than that. That's fine, too. This is Ken Bailey. Happy cartooning, and good night.